This podcast is brought to you by Civic Plus. For all of our park and recreation pros, do you feel like you're constantly putting out fires? Registrations, facility bookings, team calendars, it's a nonstop juggling act. And all that admin work keeps you from what really matters, serving your community. That is where Civic Plus comes in. Their comprehensive parks and recreation management solution streamlines everything, from online registration to facility scheduling and payments, all in one place. Parks and Recreation Management by Civic Plus automates the busy work that bogs you down, so you can spend less time on paperwork and more time creating unforgettable programs for your residents. Civic Plus is the trusted partner for thousands of high-performing civic leaders, helping them balance better services with limited resources. With over 25 years of experience and a team of 900 experts, Civic Plus powers over 10,000 organizations and touches 350 million lives every day. So if you're ready to train that bird out for impact, visit civicplus.com. The best run local governments run on Civic Plus technology.
Welcome to Season 5 of RecLess, the podcast making you smarter and more knowledgeable about the field of parks and recreation. Your hosts are Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, three career-long friends from across the country bringing you a surprise guest each episode. Listen in on a great conversation, maybe take some notes, and definitely enjoy a couple of laughs. This is RecLess.
Hold on one second. Let me pull up my cheat sheet.
Do you need a cheat sheet? Aren't they in the room with you?
How would they be in the room?
We thought you were interviewing someone at SMS.
They're in classes right now. I'm probably the only one not teaching right now.
Gotcha. I thought what Tom thought, which is you were bringing one of those over here, and you were going to interview one of the participants.
Yeah. So you just did this because just to be a good sport and get another episode in. I thought that you were doing this as like a live from location with a guest.
Okay. Well, welcome to RecLess, a podcast focusing on the industry of park and rec through three close friends around the country. Oh, what just happened?
You lost them. I'll make you host again so you can add them back.
Well, hold on. They
got sick of us talking.
I get it.
Hold on. Let me make a phone call.
Okay.
That's record time for someone leaving.
I don't know if it says I'm the host. Whoa!
Hey!
What's up?
Wait,
What's up?
Is this on purpose? Is this all a setup? Is Jay leaving?
Hey, what's going on? See, and y'all thought y'all were going to be able to get away from me.
Yep, you're all set up.
Look at
Is that what this was?
That was. We got set up.
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
What a great one.
Great
What's
surprise.
How's it going?
up? Good. How are you?
I'm good. I think we might have to move.
Yeah.
Hold on. Maybe you get on this side.
Yep.
We don't need Jay. We just need Jay.
For the Jays.
We just
right.
got played.
You got
did.
played, and we're having some fun today with J. Cole. So for those that can't see this, J. Cole is in the room with me, and J. Cole is the long-lost episode that's been mentioned several times that we recorded over a year ago. That was awesome, but Shane never hit record, so no one ever got to hear the audio.
Hold on, pause for a second.
Double check it now.
It's recording. Okay.
So you guys were getting set up, and Jay was like, hold on, Shane's wife just walked in. I almost want to have you bring her back in. Like, she almost has to be part of the experience in general, because I talked to her so much at NRPA.
I know.
And the fact that she knew about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like legendary.
It's great. Yeah, my last Alani, I have a fridge in my Bronco, and my last Alani was in there. And so I was like, go get my key so I can go to my Bronco fridge and get my drink out. And she played it cool. She said no one was on the screen when she got there. So Jay looked at her like, oh.
I waved, but I had it on mute because we were actually talking, and I'm glad it was on mute or she would have heard the voice, which would have been fine. But yeah. I muted it right away.
She's Team Jay. She's not Team.
She would have
it. Yes, for sure.
For sure. She got off the Team Shane bus a long time ago.
It's fine. It's cool.
And I don't know how you're going to handle two J's today. It's going to be fun.
Oh, this is great.
Clearly, Shane couldn't handle that the first time. So
That's what happened. It was Jay overload. He just couldn't deal with it.
I couldn't take it anymore.
Yes.
It actually was recording. I was just like, hey, guys, let's end this now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you want to say to make yourself feel better about that experience.
did a real nice job of stopping in the middle of your intro because I thought it was pretty real. It was some good
Boy,
acting. Good
that was
acting right
good. That
there.
had us. And
So-
Hannah's got all that on video, so she'll use it, I'm sure, on socials.
Well, we're going to flip the script a little bit. And Jay had the idea of doing some questions for us. But I also do want to just start this by re-mentioning what I talked about at the beginning. I'm at Supervisory Management School right now. Obviously, Jay Cole is here as well. It's one of the several NRPA
Do y'all
schools.
call each other regents?
We do.
Is it
yeah.
Regent Tryon and Regent
No.
Cole?
I call Jay the other white meat.
Well, yeah, that is true.
Right, that is true. That's Jay's name.
And she does.
I
That's
do.
not the first
I
time
do.
I've heard that.
It's not.
Yeah, so we're all the regents here. There's 9 regents that are here to teach classes. We have 126 first-time students,
Wow.
and
Okay.
I think there's 90 second-year students. So there's over 210 people here, which is great. And they were from all over the country. I was actually talking to someone last night that came from Alaska.
Yeah, I saw him too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's several from California. A lot
cool.
from the East Coast, obviously, with it being so close to Maryland and DC and Virginia and North Carolina, South Carolina. But there's people from everywhere, so it's awesome. But I want to start the topic with a session that J. Cole did this morning called Managing Up, and just wanted to pick her brain on what that means to her and why that's so important.
I thought it would be good, because I feel like the second time around when it's actually recording, I get a little bit of like leeway and control of the situation.
Sure. Yeah.
But when I talk about managing up, I talk a lot of, there's one thing when you're talking to people and giving them advice, and it's advice about this sort of amorphous leader that doesn't really exist, right? And so you can't really give people, I find that it's better to give people advice based on your own leadership qualities and how you give people who work for you the information that they need in order to manage you. Because I talk a lot about the fact that I can't do everybody's job. I rely on those middle managers to do things. So I need to give you the tools that are needed to sort of help manage me and make you successful. So I thought in this room, it'd be really great for all 4 of us to sort of be talking as leaders about managing up, and the fact that people don't realize we also have bosses. I think the favorite thing when people tell me is like, what's it like to not have a boss? I'm like, I don't know. When you find that job, you tell me, because I got about 1.2 million of them, right? Plus 2 boards and, this kind of thing. So I thought that would be an interesting topic to get you guys.
I love that. I think we've talked about it before too. I don't think when I was younger in my career, I thought, and I said it on here, I thought I'd have all this control and power when I got to be a director. Like when I get up there, I'm going to square every circle. I'm going to right every wrong that I've observed other directors make. And what you find is, what I have found, at least for me, is the further up I get, the less control over some things I thought I would have. And you're almost, I call it leadership by remote control, because like I'm not in every room. I'm not in every park. I'm not in every facility like I was potentially when I was managing a smaller group of people at a facility or managing a smaller team of people at a program or event. And so you report to more people than everyone thinks you do. And then you're further away from the decision-making on the day-to-day basis at those programs, at those facilities, than you ever thought you would be. So you're further away from the people you got in the industry to impact, and you're still dealing with a lot of boards and commissions, and the decisions that come to the top are the ones that no one wants to solve, right? Like if it was an easy win, no one comes to me and says, Shane, we got a parent upset. I know exactly how to solve it. I'm going to let you take this win. No, they take those wins. It's, Shane, we got a parent upset. We can't solve this problem. That's when I have to step in or whatever. And so it's the toughest decisions. It's further away from everyone you enjoyed supervising, and you still have a lot of bosses. So that's incredible insight.
What Shane was saying about being like the furthest away, I think that becomes also challenging, and not always seeing that impact that like that frontline management or frontline employees, they see that day to day. When you're at a rec center, when you're at a community center, when you're in athletics and you're running programs, you're running camps, like you see that direct impact. When you're in a leadership role, you're further away from that, but you need to make sure the staff continues to make those impacts. So you need to make that impression on them, how valuable that is, but you don't always see it. So you need to at least try to get there as much as you can, or at least, pull the data, pull the information you pull from the public to make sure that you're still viewing it and being able to relive it so they understand, like, it, and that can motivate them to keep doing their job.
But how do you guys, and I always joke around, sort of half joking, about like the fact that you got a whole bunch of people who could cost you your job and you have no idea. Like at any given point, you got people walking around working that for whatever reason you could be interviewed by Channel 7 News tomorrow and be like, so there's a lot of pressure there. But also to Jay's point, when you don't know the day-to-day and you don't know the ins and outs and you don't know when staff needs you to give some FaceTime or what, and how do you tell your staff at the sites, how can they give you sort of the morale check or the employee check or the just general how are things going as opposed to just bringing you fires all the time? Like how does that work?
That's a great question. First of all, I've had to learn a long time ago, and I assume all of you have, and there comes a point in everybody's career at this position, the farther you go up, that you have to let go at times, right? You're holding on tight, and all of us came from a background of expertise or some kind of concentration. So let's just use my start with summer camp, right? So I was overseeing summer camps, and I did that for 2 organizations, went into a couple different leadership roles, started supervising the individuals who were supervising summer camp, still had a hand in the training, even to the point where I went into my next position, which was a director position, where it was hard that I was not going to be as entrenched in summer camp, but I made sure my presence was known, and I wanted to see and evaluate how it was going. I've been there 12 years now, right? And so you look 12 years later, and the amount that I am removed from a summer camp, that's just one example, is so much far removed than I was 12 years ago. And it was hard for the first 2 or 3 years because exactly what you just said, Jay. It's you want things to go the way that you envision them. You want a successful program. You want people to have great experience. You want it to be safe. And of course, you want nothing to go wrong because as we all know, Shane, you mentioned it, that phone call that comes in or that email that gets to the director. If none of those come in during the entire summer, that's a great summer, but that's unlikely. Yeah. So over time, it's just been learning to let go and trust the individuals that you put in place. And to combat, I think a little bit of the challenges with that is you have to check in with these individuals. You have to see where they are. I just had a conversation with one of my younger staff because I was out for 2 weeks with the birth of our daughter, Mize, and they were checking in.
Congratulations. Had no idea.
Thank you. Yes. 2 weeks ago today. So this is my first day back at work, and I'm actually, for this reason, out of work again. But I'll be back this afternoon, and I was checking in with a couple of the individuals today. But that individual that I'm referring to, Cora Hahn, she's amazing. She's been doing great things. She would text me here and there, and we got a chance to see each other on Friday at a Halloween event where I was there as a civilian or a participant with my family. And she's like, "Is it okay to reach in with you?" I said, "Yes, absolutely. Check in." I go, the worst thing that could happen is that every time you're checking in with me, you're saying something to the effect of, "Oh gosh, this isn't urgent," or "I didn't mean to bother you while you were away," because you're coming to me just to basically ask if I can help put out a fire, right? And if that helps that individual, I want them to check in, and I then reciprocate that and try to check back in with them. I think it's different for everybody as well, Jay. Some individuals don't want to be checked in with. They feel like that's a micromanaging technique or something like that. So I do look at that on a kind of a case by case, but the biggest piece of that takeaway is just over time, learning to let go and have trust in the people that you put in place to do the job, which is ultimately going into managing up what we want our bosses, as you mentioned, to do with us.
Oh, I think you just hit it on the head. Probably one of the most challenging aspects of leadership is knowing how every employee that you manage wants to be managed. Mm-hmm. And you just mentioned like the, letting things go or kind of overstepping your boundaries in some cases. I have one individual that reports to me that they are phenomenal. They do all their jobs on time. I'm worried about deadlines. I do get a little more involved than they want me to be. And I don't want them to think that I'm, just overseeing or watching what they're doing with a fine tooth comb. But I know there's a lot of questions that comes from that division, both from city management, elected officials, and our community that I just want to be in the loop. But it sometimes can be portrayed that you don't trust them or you don't think they can do their job when that's not the case at all. So I just need to balance that and communicate that that's not what it's for. But, elected officials may call me on a regular basis to get numbers on sports leagues or why we're doing this different or why we're doing that different. And I need to know that pretty quickly versus having to call them or wait a couple of days to get that answer.
And I find that, and what I talked about in the class this morning, I find that, I live very authentically. I'm authentically me. And I think you guys are authentically you as well. And I find that it's so much easier. I tell people all the time, it is easier for you to get to know J. Cole, everything about me and understand how to adjust to me than to me try to figure out how to adjust to every single person who works for me. And so when I walk in and it's like, listen, I'm going to be the same. What you're not going to have to do is figure out like, which J am I going to get? You're going to get BJ every single time that you sort of interact with me, which comes with a straight shooter, have conversations, but it also comes with a lot of athletic amnesia, right? So after we're done. Like we're moving on or whatever. It's like, I've probably forgotten about it 2 seconds afterwards, and we're just sort of moving on. I'm very, very what the conversation, what driven by what it is that we're sort of talking about. And I feel like when you do that, it allows people to really not know that it's you, it's not them. It's sometimes it's me, right? Sometimes it's when I say it's too long of an email, I can't read. I'm not saying that you are horrible because you wrote me a long email. I'm saying that that's not how I absorb information. So as much as it's off your normal, way to go things, like I need it in X amount of time. You walk into my office crying, like that's not my ministry, right? That's not my, you got to go someplace else before you come in to talk to me. Cause I don't know that I can, deal with that. Now I will send you someplace. I have people who are really good at that you can, sort of talk to or, whatever. But I think a lot of that depends on the largesse of what you're dealing with, like how many people that you're talking about in general as to what you're supervising. But sort of to Tom's point, when you're talking about I'm gonna switch topics a little bit. When you're talking about none of us went to school to be the man, right? No, nobody did. We all have our own expertise. So you're a rec. What's your Tom? You're a rec. Are you rec, Shane? Is your background rec too?
Yeah, I did rec as well.
Okay, so we all have I'm an ecologist, right? We all have a specialty. We all have a spot to where you can insert Jay in any level between there. And he is a subject matter expert in that thing. He could do programming, he can do whatever. Same thing with Tom. But there is somebody who currently resides in that job. And so trying to figure out how you literally pull yourself away from a job that you are the expert in and let somebody else shine and do things maybe not exactly the way you would have done them, but the way that they would have done them is a difficult thing, especially when you have a lot of like rec type stuff. So how do you guys deal with those types of things?
I pull from my coaching background. That's helped me in those scenarios. And I've talked about this as well before, but you're absolutely right. If there's an ecologist under you, you're probably one of the best ecologists in the country. So you've got more chops than that person. You have more skin on the wall than that person doing their job. So that's tough to do. What I've tried to do is highlight coaching and stay away from feedback. And when I'm talking about that, what I'm saying, and I took that from my coaching background, is feedback is me saying what I would have done in that situation. Coaching is me saying, what did you see? What happened?
A really good point.
Right. And so I put on programs and special events. I have staff that put on program special events now. It's very easy for me to do the thing that I used to get real frustrated in coaching, where Michael Vick would get the snap. He would avoid 300-pound defensive linemen trying to take his head off, pivot out, roll out, and then throw a beautiful pass that happened to get tipped and it gets intercepted. And some old white quarterback who could never do that would say, well, I would have never thrown that ball. Well, my thing that frustrated me as a coaching is you would have never gotten to throw that ball. Those 3 linemen would have ripped you in half. So instead of me standing on your shoulders as a programmer and saying, I wouldn't have done this at that moment, at that special event, I need to say, what did you see? Because when we just had our 2-day 50th annual special event or whatever for the city. And there are things that I could have gone in and said, oh, I wouldn't have done that. But there are things that they've done that I would have never done.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff they've done has grown that program in such a way that for me to act like I would stand on the shoulders of those ideas and then pick out something and say, I wouldn't have done that, is feedback. And feedback is like an anvil on your head. No one ever wants to hear me walk into a room and say, hey, I got a little feedback for you. buckle in. Let me tell you how I would have done it differently. So I try to avoid that. When I'm managing and leading well, I avoid that. When I'm managing or leading poorly, that's the first thing I do is say, "Oh, yeah, I didn't think that was going to work," or "I wouldn't have done it that way." And so I really try to avoid. I've brought park op staff into a park, and instead of saying what I would have done, I'd say, "What do you see? I want to see what you see because what I see is frustrating to me, but I'm not going to lead with that. What do you see?" And inevitably, those park op staff see stuff that I actually didn't see. They're looking at things I wasn't looking at. And that's great to know. So then I can coach. Okay, no, that is important that you're trimming those bushes way off, or you see the poison ivy that I never even saw. Here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing weeds in the mulch. And that's driving me insane because weeds in the mulch plus trash on the ground plus a restroom that's dirty makes us look like we're not cleaning this park.
Yep.
And what I know is you're here 3 times a week. I just now know that you're looking at poison ivy and bushes that need to be trimmed. Let's also focus on the things that tell the community we've been here, not just that you've been here, And so I really try to pull away from feedback and provide coaching.
Yeah, Shane, you hit on a lot of great points there. I'll kind of further that into when we have conversations on this podcast. We have some tough conversations on how are we going to do X, Y, Z. The reality of it is when you're giving something to someone that you have a lot of passion about, you have to pick your hill and pick your battles. And so that's really helped me in that process of letting go, right? So the feedback piece is amazing. Even before the feedback piece, looking at it from a perspective of, okay, what is my hill? And being very clear in your organizational mission, your organizational trainings, all that, right? So what are you trying to do as an organization? And for me, it's experience. What are we providing? What kind of experience? And that goes along with everything you just said, Shane. Perception. What are people feeling and seeing? And how are they going to interpret the experience they just had at a program or an event or at a facility? So perception, showing individuals an experience, and then I always believe in plussing or leveling up. If we did something well last Friday at a Halloween event, okay, but what are we doing next year? Are we doing the same thing over and over again? So being clear on that, right? And so for me, when I look at, and I'll take a small example for you, when I look at something like a summer camp, what hill am I going to be picking to stand and put my flag in, or what battle am I absolutely going to have to fight? Or I say this isn't worth it. We got to let this individual roll with it. Maybe it's field trip choice, field trip selection. Okay, you go on a field trip. It may not be where I want you to go with these field trips because I know that XYZ is great, but I didn't even know that this other place existed. And you might show someone a great experience because it came from your brain. Now, on the flip side of that, if it's safety and procedures on a field trip, and you're talking about supervision and potentially losing children and not having that wrapped up, that's probably a battle that we're going to have to pick and we're going to have to talk about, because those are now that's an instance where a consequence could be a lot greater to a parent, to whoever it is that's involved, based on the risks or whatever goes into the decision that was made to change up that procedure. So I think that's a lot of it is you look at what you've been doing, you look at what you're passionate about, and you say, yeah, I don't know if that one's worth me picking the battle, but this particular issue might have been. And you let these people, I think it was, who was it? Michael Klitzing. We let these people take chances and allow them to fail once in a while, hoping that they use that failure to succeed the next time.
Well, that's what they say about playgrounds and about kids developing in anything is the kids don't develop mentally and physically until they're doing dangerous things safely, right? Or carefully, doing dangerous things carefully, right? So it's not about, oh, they're up on this seesaw or they're up on top of the playground. Are they doing it carefully to where they're making conscious decisions and not just doing it haphazardly? That's when they sort of grow. What about you?
Well, I'm going to play off the summer camp concept because I was thinking about that. And I think Tom and I's background are very similar. Like I've been involved in summer camp my whole life, and both as a camper, as a counselor, and then obviously within Park and Rec. But I've done resident camp. I've done all kinds of different camps. And I think about when I started with the agency I'm with right now, we have a very successful summer camp program. But prior to that, when I was running summer camp for Mecklenburg County, I was running a program that was for almost 800 kids a week for 22 facilities. So I'm coming in to just looking at the way they're doing things in the new agency And there's a lot of different perspectives. And that was kind of like my thought process was, well, I don't want to come in and just flip it upside down. I want to put myself in their shoes to evaluate this is why they're doing it this way versus, whoa, I've always done it this way. And this other agency, maybe it wasn't the right way we were doing it before. Maybe this was just different perspective. So I think that perspective and thinking about it through a different lens is really important, because then that's going to give that staff still the feeling of empowerment that they can make decisions versus, oh, this person's just coming in and changing everything. Even though they might have an expertise in that, it's never been wrong or been bad the way we've currently done it. So I think that's important to allow people to feel empowered, still have a say in things, but also you want to interject some expertise when you can, but it doesn't need to be changing all the things all the time, but at least having those conversations. So just, it's important for communication to be the key for so many changes that come up with programming or events when you're changing the way that things have been done, when you want to look at new opportunities.
I think that when you're talking about this, and first of all, because I think that, I don't know if you're got a sport, do you have a sports or coaching background, Tom? I know that Shane does. I mean, Jim does. Okay. Yeah. So me too. And so I'm coaching my son in basketball right now. And it's one of those things where, when the kids are younger, it's definitely like, listen, you can talk back. That's fine. You can think that but until you can beat me in a one-on-one, game, you're going to do it the way I need you to do it. Like, learn tricks. If you can cross over as opposed to going behind your back. I don't care what's the method is, but the general knowledge about how to play basketball, you're not quite, there yet. But you look at coaches in the NFL and the NBA and the highest level, they're never, minus maybe Larry Bird, there never was the top player in there. They looked at things, differently. So they're coaching people who are physically and mentally better than they ever were, because they're able to see the whole board and see the whole thing and figure out how to get the best out of each player, not just be the best at that particular thing. And so I think that one of those sort of great moments, and I feel like my son is very close to there. He's 12. He's very close to it. And, we play one-on-one all the time. And he knows, like, the day he beats me is the last day we play. Maybe. Like, I'll have to it'll be a little bit of time that I have to recover a little bit, but he knows that he will have organically beat me, because I didn't grow up in a house that oh, I'll let you shoot over me. No, you got to earn it, type of thing. But I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the moment where he surpasses me in being able to physically play the game, just as I'm looking forward to staff when they are physically or mentally surpassing where I am an ecologist. I stopped doing that as you move up, you move in. Years ago, probably say the field has expanded since then. So I can't go in with a 19 or 2000, I almost said 19, a 2017 mindset on how to do things, stream restoration. The field has shifted. So I have to acknowledge the fact that there are people who are now experts that, just by the nature of them doing it now, post-COVID, anything that we did and were experts in pre-COVID versus post-COVID are completely different. And so they're experts in what they're doing. And we have to sort of celebrate that. And actually, it's really fun to sort of watch. I have a story that Tom will appreciate because it's a Disney story. And so one of my best friends, one of my best friends got married in Disney, and we're the same person, just literally raised by two different people in the Midwest and wrestling, the same. She's not into sports. She does homemade pot pies, but we're the same person. So it's very funny. And so her husband would call me, and she called me. She said, David won't talk to me. I'm like, yeah, it's literally the Super Bowl. Leave him alone and won't let him watch, football. But anyway, so she gets married in Disney, and she's always wanted to get married in Disney. It's her dream. And Disney is one of the top markets for weddings, as everybody knows. So she goes with her little, this is going to come around, I promise, with her little 3-ring binder of things that she's been collecting. She was probably 12. I want this kind of flowers. I want this. I want this. I want this. And she steps in, and walks in, and she puts it down. Says, I know exactly what I want, blah, blah. And this wedding planner looked her dead in the eye, took the folder and literally went, okay. And goes, you have no idea what you want because you don't know what I can give you. Your context around this is not rooted in the reality of which I exist. And she just looked at him and what do you mean? She goes, is it in your little book that the moment that you say I do, the fireworks behind Cinderella's castle goes off? You could do that? Yes, I can do that. They don't go off exactly at 6 every day because they're staged, I don't know if you know this, by the wedding that's happening in the chapel. And they say, and go. And that's when hundreds of people see right? So it's one of those things where she was just so I had to let go of Like I have to like just sit back for the ride with somebody who actually knows more. And I feel like that's the way it is for a lot of things. And I think if people knew how many times I'm in awe of what people do on a daily basis, I don't know if they would have less faith in my ability or not. Like, oh, that's really cool. Like you can schedule 424 parks to maintain I have no idea how to do that. That's really awesome.
Yeah, I love that. We've talked about, our What Would Chris Noons Do bracelet and trying not to refer to that because that can get you in trouble, right? Because Chris is his own person. And, even asking for other people's advice, I could call J. Cole and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with a staff member. And she could give me her best advice of what she would do. But she's not in this organization. She doesn't know this feedback. She's giving me her best advice, but it doesn't mean I can apply it that way, right? It's something to take in, it's something to consider, and then figure out how I apply. And I guess I just learned at some point in my career, and I do my career differently than most, but I just learned at some point that if I continue to try to walk other people's paths, I'll never find my own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I could try to be, administratively like Jay and Tom. Jay and Tom's executive function is way higher than mine. So I could try to follow that, or I could just, going back to the very first question you asked, Jay, I could just tell my agency, I don't live high in my executive function. And, I told my boss when they hired me that I was a college football coach that didn't work out, a design major that didn't make those chops in design. I'm introverted. I'm aloof. I have low executive function. And what she saw was a creative,
I hope that wasn't in your interview.
it wasn't, but it was closely thereafter. I've always had this honesty to a fault.
But if it was in an interview, and we've talked about this several times, maybe that's why he didn't get the job as the first candidate.
I was the second candidate. Yeah. Yeah. But the first guy was an All-American, former NFL football player, captain of Ohio State, had all the leadership qualities, went into the military and had all these things. But, I was essentially telling her, this is what I see when I look in the mirror. What she was telling me was she sees a really creative, outside the box thinker who can coach and lead in a very unique way. And that's what she saw, right? And so, I've just had to learn in some capacity that the best thing I can do for my agency, the best thing I can do for the people under my report is say, this is how I lead. This is how I am. This is the space I'm going to give you in everything. And then to talking to some earlier points, this is what I expect. I expect we love on people. I expect we're very intentional when we do it. I expect our programs and events to have people feel seen. And, I never mention revenue and I never mention attendance and I don't mention some of the stuff that we have to do. Luckily, I have an emergency management team and everybody else to make sure that we're following all the policies and procedures and we're safe and all the barricades are where they're supposed to be. And that's why you have a full well-rounded team to make sure you don't drop the ball and miss something. But yeah, I just try to be honest early on in who I am and how I lead in the space that it provides. And I am fine, as you said, being authentically me and living with the success and failures that come with that. Whatever happens, I'm okay being authentically me. And if that doesn't work out in Pflugerville, cool. It has. But if it hadn't, that would have also been okay. And I would have quickly, like I did in Hutto, found somewhere else that needed me, and I would have gone there. And I wouldn't have held it against them, and hopefully they wouldn't have held it against me, that I wasn't the right fit at the time, and it's okay to move on,
And that's a really good point that I tell people who are looking to move up and get places. Once you get to the point where you're leading an agency or you're interviewing for a director job, everybody's qualified, right?
Yeah.
Like you're in front of a board or you're interviewing, they've whittled it down to people who are all sort of qualified, right? They're trying to figure out who's the right person for the job. And the right person, it's the right time, place, and person for that thing. Like, I believe that I was the right person for the job that I have right now. However, if you were to clone me and I were to leave my job, I would not be the right person to follow me.
Absolutely.
Right? The right person to follow me might need to be a little bit more like, let's patch up some of the, like, there's a lot of change that happened the last couple of years. Like we had to urge and go in a little bit of a different direction, like a little bit like, calming, a little bit more, whatever. And then the next person might, because you don't want to go this way with the change, and then this way, right? And so, it's okay to not be, you want to walk in and say, do you want me as a leader?
Yeah.
Because you might want somebody else, and that's fine. You didn't fail. You just weren't the right person for that situation in that place at that time.
Man, I love that, because I go in, first of all, when I go in on interviews, and Jay is right, and this is why it makes it tough for me to get interviews or get the job sometimes. When they ask the question, why should we select you? I usually say something to the extent that you just said, Jay. I say, I'm sure everyone's qualified for the job. If you are thinking one of those other candidates is similar to me, I didn't do a good job. It's either me or that grouping that you have over there. I am going to treat this job so differently that no one else you interviewed is also going to lead like me. So either the 2 or 3 other candidates, go find the best of that bunch, or be led in a totally different way. That's me. But I can't do it the way they're going to do it. And I'm not going to do it traditionally. And I have told a lot of agencies that I'm the person you hire before the gold medal. I'm not the person you hire for the gold medal. Like, I'm the person you hire before Capra. I'm the person that gets that ship going back in the right direction, gets the staff buying back into what they like to do. I make changes at every program and every event. That 49-year event that I was talking about, it was in the summer, and it was in the spring and German themed. I moved it to the fall, took it away from the citizens that were managing it. Now we manage it. And I do that everywhere I go. That's what I'm going to do. But I also get to a point where I no longer find my worth. And I'm here now. Like, I was talking to my city manager 2 weeks ago. I'm looking for my next spot. And Pflugerville's been amazing to me. And anyone that knows me would say, why would you leave a spot that values you, sees you as you, and lets you lead authentically you? And it's because at some point they're outgrowing me. They no longer need the wonder I like to do. They need someone that wants to take something from good to great. And I'm not a good to great guy. I'm a 0 to good guy. I want to turn the ship around and get you going in the right direction, build some infrastructure, do some really fun things, really engage that community and get them loving the park system again. And then I want to leave, do that again. And someone else comes in and wins gold medal and Capra and does all the things that a department really needs to do to stand up in this industry.
And it's hard going from, and I call that sort of an assassin. That's kind of how I was in my previous job. I was a fixer, right? I wasn't the king, I was the kingmaker. I was the one that the person, the leader needs. Like, I was cool with being needed by 4 people than anybody knowing what it is that I would do. Because it was like, I joked around and people are like, oh, did you, and I probably shouldn't talk about murder, but I talk about it in terms of murder. Like, people are like, oh, or did you shoot them? I'm like, no, but I poisoned them 5 days ago. Like, you don't even know that you're dead now. Like, that's my thing. I'm not as hands-on. So going into this job where it was very, like, I can't hide in the background and I can't be the undercover, whatever. I have to be, it's a completely different balancing act of when I really do want to get into the weeds and really be figuring out how to untangle. I love seemingly impossible challenges to get into there and do, that stuff.
I wrote a note down from the previous time that you were on here, and you described yourself as a small department director in a big agency. And I loved that thought process. I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I could go to the city of Austin or city of Arlington or city of Fort Worth and do what I do here. But I love the fact that you take into a large agency mindset a small agency leadership style.
I think that there's a miss. I was talking to Chris Bass about this before. I firmly believe, and I think we talked about this last time, that a leader is a leader is a leader. Period. Oh. It doesn't matter, like, period. You're a leader, you're a leader. It's not, I don't walk around with the thought process of how many people who work for me. I'm just tackling the next thing that's in front of me, just like you guys are tackling the next thing that's in front of you, the next thing's in front of you. So many times I hear from people who are looking to make the next step or go to a different thing. Like, I don't know, but I'm coming from a small agency. If you don't stop saying that, but was everything on your shoulders? Is it all on you? You have a thing that other people don't have, walking into a room and being the end. You are the end of every decision that happens within that group, which is different than managing the same amount of people within an agency. So I might have a division or a group that might be the same size as, like, Tom, your whole department. The leader of that and you are not the same, because they have multiple levels before the end decision maker or whatever it is. And so there is a thing going in, and it's the same. It's the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. It does not matter how large the agency is or whatever it is. Now, the areas that could mess things up in a daily basis when you have that many, sure, absolutely. And when you wake up in the morning, you have no idea what is sort of going on. But I really do think that if you went to Austin, just because of your mindset, it would be the same. It would be you're looking at, find a problem, fix that problem, let other people deal with the other 80% that's not important at that moment.
I get that. And I have thought I would love the opportunity to lead a big city. And in my interview process, I've even thought of, I would have said, you've got these tech companies, and I think I'm much more like a CEO of a tech company, how I dress, how I think, how I act, how I show up, than a traditional government employee. And so I would even use that to my advantage in that interview process. My problem, I believe, is that in those large agencies, for me, just Shane Mize, not anybody else, to be successful, I have to win somebody over. And in a larger agency, I have to win over so many more people, like so many more commissions and boards and groups. And any of those people can see me being aloof or being different or too creative or too outside of the pyramid of government. And I think it can throw them off. And so in a smaller agency, I can win that group over in a smaller amount of time. If I'd have gone, Arlington had a director job. Arlington reached out to me. Gary Packham from Denton got the job. He's the right dude for that fit. But I thought about it for a second. If I go there, my first 2 years, I'm trying to win people over. I can't lead unless I get buy-in, and it would take much longer for someone with no executive function than someone who just walks in and commands a room. They can do it quicker.
Well, I think, yes. But I think that there's a little bit of a faux Monet about that whole thing. So and I'm not talking necessarily about a strong mayor situation. That's different, because that's but I say all the time, listen, boards, they love appointing people. You know what they hate? Firing people. They hate it. Right. And so they talk about like, oh, I've got 12, I just need 6. I mean, in reality, there's grossly incompetent. Let's put aside grossly incompetent, right? Which is but it's never going to be about the way you dress. It's never going to be about the way, that is like super, I'm the same way. We've talked about this before. We're very similar on completely opposite spectrums. People ask me what's the best part of your job. My best part of my job is I'm never going to worry about what shoes or what clothes I'm going to wear ever. You know why? Because whatever I'm wearing is in fact the vibe. Right. I don't wake up in the morning and think, what do I have today? Unless I'm going to be in front on TV or on the board or whatever. Sure. I don't think what do I have today? I got to dress appropriately for that thing. I dress appropriately for how I'm feeling in general. And then people are, that's kind of the thing. Because I think, again, with the authenticity, the everyday person, the seeing, if I was wearing a suit, you would see and feel that was not my authentic, self in general. But I think that winning people over to that extent equals the higher up in a larger agency that you go, the winning people over is less about the personality and more about, did you fix things that didn't come across? Like when something came across, did you handle it? Did you keep me from having to be on Channel 7? Did you keep me from having to tell the community no? How much are you able to protect sort of me, which I think is the most valuable thing that I provide sometimes. The best thing I ever tell my supervisors, board of supervisors, when they're like, oh, a resident contacted me about, you don't want any of that. You want to direct it back to me because it's going to be a no. It's going to be a hard no. And you don't want to be the person who's telling them no. So as long as we in the room understand each other as to why, you now have the power or the green light to say, yeah, I just talked to the director. She's saying no. I don't understand her decision. It's the wrong decision, but I can't do anything about it because they're an authority and blah, blah, blah. And internally we're like, we're good. You're good. Right. And so that's really ultimately what gets them elected. That's really all that they care about. I don't think I've ever heard, well, there was a crashing a car. There's some grossly incompetent stories, but like, there's not a lot of, I feel like they kind of let you do what you need to do as long as it's not impacting their election.
You talked about managing up earlier, and that's actually a big part of what I think about with managing up is, to Shane and Jay, your point there, you're winning over the individuals who are above you. You have to do it with the people that are a part of your team as well. You also have to do it parallel to maybe another department head or whoever that may be that's not in your Parks and Rec, not on your Park and Rec team, but maybe it's finance, maybe it's whoever it might be, right? You're winning those individuals over. And I had a conversation with another individual on our team, and I get a lot of people who come to us and say, so a little background. For all of you who have large agencies, you understand this. But for a smaller agency, this is a little unique. We're not part of the city or town hall. We are in our own little locations. We have a couple different satellites, but all of the other departments are under that branch. And so we'll have individuals who will say, well, and there's another government agency that's in the same building as us too. So a different municipal organization. We just work out of one of the same facilities as them, and they'll make comments here and there of why isn't your elected officials, your bosses, why aren't they ever here? Why aren't they ever stopping by? And I'll have that even internally, and they'll say, where's your boss? Where's the elected officials? I said, be careful what you wish for. I go, we do not want them here. We have the best situation ever. I wake up every day and I go to our office, I go to our sites, and I'm not worried whatsoever that those individuals are going to be coming there to either breathe down our neck, ask questions, and that's come over time. And I try to hammer this home is they trust us. We have won them over to a point where they're not getting bothered because they're trying to put out the fires that we have already put out before they've even come close to them sniffing out the smoke. And so to that point, I just agree with you 100%. That's what they want. And Shane, I think we've had the conversation about a leader is a leader, and there's individuals who are not going to end up in director positions. I do believe it's parallel and it transfers to different agency sizes. That said, it's all about comfort too. If you like where you are, you stay where you are. If you like that certain size, you go to that other size. And so that's all preference.
I think that also, and I think I'm talking over Jay, but I think that also figuring out what your role is in situations. In a larger agency, there's so much, operations is so thick, right? It's so many. And going out to sites, I have 60-man sites, right? That are employee manned, somebody's there amongst the foreign. And going out to them, we did this whole ice cream thing, where we're saying instead of a employee appreciation event, because budgets are tight, we did ice cream. So me and my deputies, we showed up to every site and delivered ice cream. And I say all the time, how long do you think that took? It took 7 full days. 7 full days to get to 60-man sites. And that was with somebody looking at, because I think we talked about it last time, because Disney hug rule, right? So I always talk about Disney. So Disney hug rule, just so you guys don't remember from last time.
Never let go.
Right. Is that when you go to Disney, the characters they do not let go of a child who's hugging them until the child initiates that release. So, because you never know how long a child needs to be hugged. And so that's when I go to sites, it's the Disney hug rule. I stay, it's like double Dutch. I'm in and out and in and out. I will stay as long as you want me. But the moment that they're how long is she going to stay here? We got work to do. I'm out. Right. But it's trying to figure that out. Because if I leave when they still want to talk, it's oh, she doesn't actually want to spend time with us. If I stay too long, does she not think we have other things to do and she's micromanaging, right? And so I don't know. People are and then they're you were supposed to come to my site today. I didn't make it because I spent 2.5 hours at, Fairfax, because that's what they needed. And so now we're shifting everything back. And the poor people who are scheduled, Jay's not going to make it to you guys. She'll do you guys on Friday or whatever it is. And that's kind of but I think that takes a personality that is a very small town, having conversations as opposed to standing up and having some sort of a pompous, finding that interaction, finding that common thread with each person that you meet at all times. And then that really does trickle down to leadership or whoever really does care about you. Because it's really hard to make those connections if you have somebody who's just about the suits and standing in front and whatever, when you have a larger agency. So I actually think the smaller medium town people are much better at really, you feel disconnected. Shane, if you walked in, if we switched place, you would feel disconnected because you don't know everybody. So you would show up at sites as much as possible. You would drive by and stop at a maintenance yard and talk to people because you would feel that missed connection, whereas other people don't feel that.
Well, and who an agency hires in an interview, especially at the director level, right? If you're hiring a rec superintendent, usually a director or assistant director are in on those interviews, so they know the industry. But by the time you're hiring directors, the people that are in those interviews are city managers or mayors or people sometimes outside of the industry, and they think what they want is maybe someone that can step in and is well spoken or lead a room, but what they need is something totally different. And that's interesting.
For the people in the back, like I tell people all the time, just remember, you are going to interview with people who have no idea how to do your job.
Absolutely.
It's the only time that you're ever going to be sitting in front of people explaining and be like, that's not. I've been in interviews I was in an interview for my job and they asked me a question that might have been 7 levels behind. Like somebody like it was a like a walk and talk type of thing. Well, how do you program for like, a rec center? I don't. What do you mean? Okay, I can talk about you know what I mean? It's a very interesting. So you have to, this is the advice out there. You really got to, when you get to that director level, you kind of have to reconnoiter your answers and everything for an audience of non-park professionals.
Mm-hmm.
I've told this story before, but I was on an interview 10 years ago and they had literally director of HR, director of the fire department, police department. They had someone from the school district there because they partnered with the school district. They had someone from nonprofits there. They had community members there. I mean, it was full out. Everyone that you potentially can touch in some fashion of your department is going to be in that interview panel or could be in that interview panel. And, the questions that you get from the Boys and Girls Club is not going to be the same as you get from your city manager or your elected official or your fire department chief. So, I mean, you have to prepare for all that because you don't know what to expect. And then on the other side of things, in a, smaller town, you're going to have other department leaders, but they're thinking just like how that impacts them, not necessarily how it might impact the city or how like the larger impact is from the community wide. Because, when I was interviewing with City of Concord, they had the planning director and the engineering department because we work so closely with them, but it wasn't necessarily thinking of citywide initiatives. It was just, hey, when we communicate together, like, how would this go? Because they want to make sure it's a good fit on their end too, not just from the city perspective.
And it's getting buy-in. They're just the person, the hiring manager is putting them on there so that they get buy-in with the decision when they have to work on it, in the future. And I'm finishing up interviews for my deputy director gig. I did not see your application, Shane. I might have missed it.
Sorry.
Time call me. I had another director from Virginia Arlington, Jane. I asked her to be on the panel because I needed somebody else sitting with me who knows the gig, right? Yeah. I can't be the only park person because then there are questions like I had in a couple of the other interviews, like people were honing in on stuff that's not important, but like missing the stuff did you not hear his answer to X, which is almost disqualifying? No, it's only one question. It's kind of like, it wasn't like this. It was like, child abuse is like a no, right? In this field, maybe in other fields, it's just, that kind of a thing. So I really need to bring somebody else in who understands sort of what it is that we're doing. I will tell people that, and Chris Matthews and I did a talk at NRPA about hiring from both sides of the table. So interviews and being a good interviewer and interviewee. And one of the things we talked about is the market right now. I will tell you, like, get out there and put your application out. People aren't leaving their jobs right now. People aren't leaving. Like I interviewed, and they were great. A great group of people that I interviewed for the final, like when it got down to 5, but they were basically almost all of the people who had direct park experience. People aren't leaving their jobs. So if you're sitting around in a job right now thinking, oh, I could never get that, go for it. Now is the time. If you have park experience and you're going for a park job, absolutely now is the time to put yourself out there and go for it, because the people they're just not leaving their jobs. Everything's happening in the federal government. The closer you are to DC, that's the other thing that's happening. People are like really, it's a low hire, low fire market right now.
Well, and there's some economies of scale for just applying for jobs. Like I remember as a kid that loved West Texas, El Paso opened up, and that was the spot I would always wanted to be in. I was a rec superintendent and I promoted to the assistant director in Missouri City. I had a great resume, I had a great work history. I went and bought a suit. I was ready. What I wasn't ready for is I hadn't done an interview in 7 years. And the damnedest thing about interviewing for your dream job is you realize pretty quickly that if you're not, what I should have done is for a year prior, I should have been applying for director jobs, hearing director job questions. And what's the harm in that, right? If someplace in Bend, Oregon offers me the director job, maybe that's where I go, one, or I go through the process. I even maybe get some experience with negotiating. And then I say, you know what, it's not the right fit at this time. Thanks for the offer. That's the the worst thing that's going to happen. They offered me a job and I turned it down. But I got to that El Paso job and I was number 2. I was the second candidate. And I did not perform at a level in the interview that would have made me the number 1 candidate. And it wasn't like the Pflugerville job. We call him G.I. Joe, but Joe Brown was the guy that they selected. Like I said, he was a 3rd-team All-American at Ohio State. He played for the Seattle Seahawks. Then he went to the military and ran elite forces. He had leadership oozing out for days. And I'm the candidate over here talking about how T-shirts change a culture, And so, yeah, there's some, you have to choose creative or leadership there. And they obviously, what's funny is 7 years later, I think they would have chosen me over Joe. But at that time, that profile, people. Sometimes an agency thinks it wants a silver bullet when really it needs 100 silver BBs, right? Like they think they want this one hire to do this one thing. It's going to change the culture. And really you need a bunch of small wins that lead to that. But what I found in El Paso was I had done everything with my resume. Everyone had seen it, looked at it, gave me feedback. I had a good suit. I'd done all these things. I was accredited in the industry. I had some clout. I hadn't worked on my interviews at all. And so there's nothing wrong with creating some muscle memory in the interview process and some economies of scale of doing 3 or 4 of them bad. So you finally get a good couple of them rolling in. And when I got to Pflugerville and interviewed, I felt pretty confident in the fact that I'd put myself through a process some of the other candidates hadn't. At least at that point, I knew that I'd gone through a gauntlet that I felt more comfortable in that room,
I've had that conversation with folks so many times, and I highly encourage them. Anyone that's thinking in the near future, whether it's 6 months from now or a year from now, or even, a year and a half from now, if you want to pursue a leadership position, start applying now. Even if you don't think you're ready, because those interview experiences is what's going to set you apart, because you don't know what to expect in an interview. It might be a panel of 3, it could be a panel of 13, it could be a presentation, it could be hey, come meet the community. We're going to do a meet and greet with everyone. And you don't know what to expect. So the more experience you can have doing that, the better suited you're going to be. And you're going to learn about yourself, where you fall short. You're going to learn about other agencies of, hey, maybe I wouldn't want to work for that department. Maybe I would want to work for them. You're going to learn on what size agency you might want to work for. So the more that you have that opportunity to see something you can apply for, even if you don't think you would take it or are not ready, what's the harm? There's no reason not to.
And I'll give you my, I don't know who on, and I'm saying this about who on the TikTok is giving the younger people like the advice about interviews, but let me just tell you sort of my J. Cole's advice for interviews. I see people making mistakes constantly. The first thing is your resume is the facts, right? Your cover letter is why do you want this job? You need both things. Whoever's telling them not to write cover letters are stupid. Write me a cover letter that tells me not why you want a job, why you want this job. Like, why do you want this job here? Especially if you're doing any kind of a change or you're looking for a leadership, like you tell me in a couple of paragraphs why you want that job first. It's like,
I hate cover letters.
I think cover letters are going away. I really do.
I hate
They're
them.
not. They're not. Why do you hate them?
Because it's just a bunch of people saying.
This is exactly what we're talking about now.
It's a bunch of people just saying
I will
they
die
want.
on this hill.
And I will too.
So I want to see a cover letter. I want to see someone, and honestly, I value that. You look at a resume, and sometimes they have a mission statement, and
I don't like that at all.
I don't either, and that's what I say. I want to know a little bit. I want, to Jay's point specifically.
Yes.
What are you doing here? Why are you here?
Yes.
And honestly, why do I even have to get to the? I know most of the time your pool could be limited, but I might not even get to the resume if the cover letter is.
A cover letter will get you
sloppy.
an interview where your resume might have been like in the middle of the pack if you've done the following things. The amount of people for jobs who don't take the amount of time to look up who's running the agency.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Who don't know anything about the agency. In a cover letter, you can tell me that you spent 30 seconds Googling. I would like to work at the Fairfax County Park Authority. I love the stuff that you guys are doing right now with PROSA. It's really, cutting edge, blah, blah, blah. I'm at my job, blah, blah, blah. I'm interested in moving more to the East Coast. It's a really good way of saying, are you just splattering the country with resumes, or are you trying to get back to the DC area for a specific purpose? I grew up there. My family's from there. I'm not applying for a lot of jobs. I'm applying not the standard, whatever it is. But I've literally given people interviews because of the cover letter first. And it tells me why you want this job, especially right now, when the federal government, a lot of the jobs are like gone and
Yeah.
people are looking at shifting careers. If you're trying to look at shifting careers, you need to tell me in your cover letter how the job that you have translates in the job you're applying for. I've been doing X, Y, and Z. I did a whole bunch of like event planning, which really transitions well into this event planning job, blah, 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 blah. Like I really think that you can get a job without a cover letter, but you want to get into a room. It's a really great way of like separating yourself, because people are telling people that cover letters are going away.
Especially when you want that position and your resume may not get you the interview, right? That's even add that to it. We just talked about the individuals. Jay said, you're not ready for this position. Apply. Okay, but if they aren't ready and the market is a little bit low, why am I bringing someone in an interview that's resume is 6, 7, 8 down the list when it comes to the data and the stats?
But I will also to jump on top of that, when you're interviewing for jobs, the trick is you need to check as many boxes as possible, and you need to check the boxes that don't disqualify you. So Shane and Jay might not like cover letters, but you're not going to not interview. You're not going to choose not to interview somebody because they wrote a cover letter. Whereas I might choose to not interview, or you might lose out on a job over somebody who gave me a very well thought out cover letter. Check the box. Thank you very much for the interview. Like a thank you note at the end. Thank you notes are a really great way to figure out who's in the interview. Little trick and note that I give people: call the person who's scheduling them and saying, hey, I would like to have a group of thank you notes that I can send out right after the interview. Could you give me the names of the people who are on the panel? I guarantee you they're not going to say no. It gives you, especially if it's like right before or the day of, so it's not like, it gives you 3 hours to look them up. Right now I know exactly who's going to be in the interview panel, and I've just got a cheat code and I can look them up and then send the thank you note afterwards.
In addition to the thank you note, that's going to give you some context of what to focus on when you answer questions. Because if you know that, the finance director is going to be there, or if you know that the, rec leader for XY facility is going to be there, well, you may want to tailor some answers to those people specifically, because then you can do your homework. And when they're asking you questions that are specific about programming or, whatever the expertise is of that position, tailor it to that, because then it's going to draw their attention versus generic answers that just tell you, a little bit about the job, but you don't know the department, because you're not mentioning facilities or initiatives, strategic planning, master planning that we're working on right now that these people are involved in.
So I was interviewing for my job, and I was talking to somebody about it. And Lila was like, yes, but they're kind of a boys club, and all they like to talk about is basketball. I'm like, cha-ching, great, tell me more, right? And so I was like, so I'm looking up who the deputy director is, who would be my dotted line, deputy county executive, who'd be my dotted line relationship. I think Chris is still the 3-point leader at West Virginia. He played at West Virginia, still the 3-point leader. I think he still has that, Chris Leonard. He played for Western. So now I'm like looking at everything up. Great. So now it's a Teams interview, and so I have like sort of I've literally created a fake office, right? I turned my chair into the thing. I have the stuff on my thing. I take my photo from college when I was playing basketball. I pick my photo of me doing and put it like right there. And I have other stuff. Like I have literally staged this thing. So I set up and I go online or whatever is before. And Chris, and I know him now, can't help himself. He's like, who's that in the background? I'm like, oh, that old thing that happens to be sitting there? That's me. And he's like, did you play basketball? I did, in fact. And we have a whole conversation about that. And now he's like, when I told him, he goes, you actually set that up? I'm like, of course I set that up. Of course I did. Exactly. In order to have that conversation or that link and it's literally that. Sometimes it's that conversation that I know. And I tell people all the time, nobody wants to be in an interview. The people who are interviewing if you walk in thinking that nobody wants to be there and your goal is just to make the most out of the hour that you have and make them like you, while knowing your stuff, that is really important. People who go in, it's just about facts. Yeah. No, I got to spend 8 hours of my life with you every single day. We got to have some sort of a connection outside of recreation or whatever it is. You got to make me laugh, make me giggle, like do something that's an interactive sort of conversation that makes it feel not like an interview and you're like 90% of the way there.
You boil it down to I think a lot of what we talk about in this profession, but in general in life, all of this has to do with, you just said the word connection. It's relationships. Connection and relationships lead to success. And, if anybody tries to tell you differently, I would disagree. I would look at your story. You mentioned Disney before. If anybody talks to me about Disney, because they've either went on one trip or a dozen trips. You better believe that every time that I'm talking to that individual, Disney comes up. It's a connection piece. It builds bridges. And so, yeah, what you did there was genius.
I remember a situation. I interviewed for a job, part-time position 20 years ago. And I walked into this guy's office that was interviewing me, and he had an NC State helmet on his desk. And I'm not an NC State fan. I didn't go to NC State, but I'm smart enough to engage that conversation in my brain that says, oh, he likes NC State. NC State played last night. I know the score. I watched the game a little bit because it was a good, nail biter game. And I said, oh, did you watch the game last night? And so we sparked up a conversation. And 10 minutes later, we started the interview because that first 10 minutes was just talking about sports. And I got the job offer. And it wasn't necessarily because I had the skill set or the experience of that job, but I made a connection with that person.
And it doesn't always, for all the women out there, it doesn't always have to be sports.
No,
and
it doesn't.
Because I have like my chairman of my board of supervisors. Sometimes it's like the easiest thing. He's got a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And we might sit down and before we had it's not contentious, but we're dealing with budget cuts things. I just sat down and I'm like, why do they stink all the time? And he goes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like the 12, I'm like, yes. Or and this is a true story. I come home and I have my driveway and my bedroom has like a fake attic thing. And there's a window. And so like come in and like my son is like sitting on the roof. You can tell there was a thought process in there at some point and it was like ill themed, but then he was like already committed and he just thought it was comfortable. And I'm just like to Shane's point, what did you see? Walk me through the thought process, So I walked in another meeting. I was like, let me tell you what my 12-year-old, because we both have 12-year-old boys, right? Find that one connection that you can make and then remember what that is and figure out a way to bring the conversation around to that, sort of thing. Because especially when you're talking about contentious or you're talking about conversations or especially in situations where it's going to be a little bit of a hard conversation, at the very least, it reminds them, I always say, unless it's personal, it's not personal.
Yeah.
Right. Like that conversation is the personal part. Right now, we're going to get into business and we're going to revert back to talking about Disney after we have a really hard conversation because that was work and that's not, this thing.
You're a person, and that's that piece is you're just a person. You're a parent. If you're not a parent, and I think of the there's kind of these 4 categories that you talk about and it's sports. We talked about that, right? Entertainment, travel, and food. Those 4 people, you take those 4 categories, someone can relate to one of those usually.
I think it's important that you curate too. You've been talking earlier. What I learned from that El Paso job, I got into the interview and they asked me what I would do as the director with the county taking over this downtown convention center that was and I had no clue because I hadn't thought anything about it. Well, if I'd done any type of research and looked up the newspaper articles from the last 6 months, that's all they talked about. I did that after the fact, realized that I wasn't ready for that question. What I've done since, every resume, I'm not just talking about when I curate my resume to make sure it fits those folks. And so like if I see that you've passed a bond election or you've got a huge CIP program, I will show growth in the CIP that I've managed.
Yes.
So I can show that I'm your candidate, 1, 2, because that's a question they're going to ask me about. So now they get 10 questions with me in the hour, maybe 9, and I'm already getting to select one, and if they have a lot of trails and I throw in that I created the trail capital of Texas for Pflugerville, I might get 2 questions. And so now I start to actually load the questions towards my resume. So my wife applied for a job. We looked the lady up that would be the supervisor. We saw that at some point she was in her church choir. Well, Hannah was a concert pianist and did some church piano playing. We put that in the resume. She hadn't done that in 20 years, but it's just a note. It's just a nugget. It's a connection point to Tom's point that every time I do a resume, I make sure it's curated for the job I'm applying for. If I apply for 15 jobs, my resume may be tweaked 15 different times, but every single one's supposed to be for the eyes of the person that are looking at it and looking at what they're potentially needing through their newspaper articles or their park and rec commission meetings or their city council meetings, what they've talked about the last 6 or 8 months. If I can find a fit, that's the first thing I'm highlighting on my resume. I want it to be big, bold, and they can do this thing we need them to do.
Yeah. And I think one thing to add, I know we've talked a lot about this connection piece and we've had it in reference to interviews. I think you can relate that to every other facet of our department and our elected officials as well. So I think it's important to kind of have these little talking points when you know that you're going to be in front of some elected officials or in front of leadership or city manager's office. Like, try to find out these little nuggets so you can have conversations about them as well. Like, where did those folks go to school? What did they go to college for? So if you're in a situation where you're trying to make an impression, you can have that talking point planned out. And I'll use tomorrow. Like, tomorrow's election day. We have 3 elected officials coming in. Once I know the results, like, I'll probably do a little more homework on those elected officials that get sworn in once they come in, because that way they're going to have a face to a name. They're going to have that connection that I'll make with them based on some homework I did, which will build that relationship. If I did not do that, it wouldn't be the strongest relationship from the start.
I 100% agree with that. I also sort of make it a point that, because you all go to ribbon cuttings and we're all at places that it's like the pomp and circumstance, right? And so I specifically, when we're standing there and waiting for the PIO or whoever it is to like, can we get a picture of you doing this? Can we get a picture of you doing this? Right? There's a lot of like waiting and, talking, whatever. I specifically do not talk about work. Right? I don't. So I'm sitting there I'm talking about like where they went this weekend. I'm talking about what they did, whatever it is. I do not ever, when we're at a opening or whatever it is, if they want to bring up work or the board of supervisors, they can bring it up. But I am a safe place to just be talking, right? And what I'm doing while we're talking is I'm gathering all of those information to make it a good conversation for the next time that we meet, maybe in the office or whatever it is. So they actually open more up to me because they're not like, oh my gosh, is Jay going to talk to me about that park? Nope, I'm never going to talk about that because, nobody wants to be here on a Saturday. I got a kid that we got to get back for. We're all just smile, cut the ribbon, get out of here. If you do want to talk about it, great. But I'm never going to, and I give that advice to people as well all the time, because when, as you guys know, if you're outside of like the sort of work environment or you're at an event or whatever it is, like how stressful is it that every single time an employee or somebody who works for you comes up, it's to talk about something. Hey, about that email. Hey, it's a lot. I don't have my armor. I'm not like behind. I don't know I'm just standing here trying to wait for the thing, as opposed to how old's your kid now? Is he playing basketball? Whatever. Now I'm relaxed. Right now I'm like, we're just having a conversation about stuff. Now we're peers, right? We're just 2 people having a conversation, and that sort of lends into this connection sort of later on. It's so much better for your career in general to like make that link.
And if you don't have a great memory, like use your notes app. When the mayor says that he and his wife walk the dog, write it down. The mayor walks his dog regularly, put it in. So the next time you see the mayor or whatever, you could pull up that notes app and see what you'd potentially mentioned, a couple things, and then you have that talking point, that safe space. So it doesn't, if you have a bad memory or you met a bunch of people or that's not your strength, and some people can recall things quickly and some people it's in and out quickly, you can still leverage, previous conversations. Just write it down real quick.
I think that the lesson for people is that I hear a lot, and I was talking about it in my managing up class. So I started off by saying, middle management sucks. Like, it's the hardest job. And, I say this to people before we're talking about it, just to level set. Because if people are sitting around saying, oh my gosh, this is so hard for me, I just must be doing something wrong. No. It's hard for everybody in that sort of position in general. But I also, when I'm talking about like getting it together, I say, when I do leadership talk, sometimes I'm like, hey, I run a really large agency. I got a lot of people under me, blah, blah, blah. I am 100% winging it. I'm 100% winging it. You're winging it. Everybody, because I have never had a situation where a car goes through a rec center window. I've never had a situation like the amount of things that are new information that happens at any one point in time. So if you're looking at somebody and thinking they've got it together and it's just all natural and they don't have to work hard, it's like the duck in the thing. Look at their feet. Like, we just talked about me staging an interview thing, Shane using a notes app to like write stuff down, like strategically finding connections. This is not, there's nobody who's doing this who's not constantly working at trying to do others. It's not a natural leaders are very rare. It's a trying to think of stuff. Do I have more things to do than drive to multiple sites and give out like ice cream? That's not like, there's a lot of things that happens. And I think that people don't account for the amount of work it always takes and the amount of like literally just winging it. Like, I'm holding on, just like everybody else does, hoping that the wheel doesn't come off. And that if it does, that I've built up enough
good
skill set that I can figure out how to put it back on the fly on the side of 495. Like, that's it. That's the gig.
Yeah. And, I just want to add really quick point to that is people will ask all the time, and we mentioned COVID a little while ago, right? Everything changed in 2020. Was the best example of the worst time and the best time to be a leader. And I say that because people came to you and they asked you, what are we doing? What are we doing? I have no idea what we're doing.
No clue.
But you're asking me to make decisions on what we need to do, and I will do that. But understand, I don't have the answers. I'm going to do what I think is best.
All park and rec people, and people have to remember that. All park, you have like an alien ship of purple octopi. Is that plural for octopus? Octopi. I feel like the other one is
sounds right.
Right, plural of octopi that could come in and like turn everybody to Play-Doh. Or threaten to turn it, like the weirdest, nobody's ever done it situation. You said, who is the best people to deal with that? I'd say park and rec staff. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like if anybody can fix it with like a glue stick and some like construction paper, like, and it goes at every single level. It's not just my level. It's not just your level. It's every single one, because they are dealing with it every day and they have no idea who walks into the door. They're counselors, they're police, they're every single thing. And so using those skills as you move up in the problem solving or whatever it is really the key. There's no magical, I know how to do this.
Well, I think when people ask you, why do you love so much what you do? One of my answers has always been because no 2 days are the same.
100%.
Yeah. But that also makes it very challenging because no 2 days are the same. So you don't know what to expect, but that's awesome. Like, I wouldn't be happy sitting at a cubicle doing the same job every day, crunching numbers day in and day out with nothing changing. I would drive myself crazy. Unlike this profession, no day's the same. You never know what's going to be thrown at you. You got to be prepared for it, and you got to be able to adapt. And that's why Park and Rec makes such strong leaders, because we can adapt quickly and be creative and think of things on the fly.
And man, the payout, especially when you're in rec and when you're in situations where you're dealing with like kids and whatever, like, I have the thing where I say we're in the business of fun. Like, that's my thing. We're in everybody who works there, and fun, not necessarily always haha. Sometimes it's mental health, sometimes it's health, like physical health, but we're all in the business of fun where we could literally change lives. We're not the emergency. We're not the ambulance. We're not the emergency room. That would be fire or rescue. That would be like, foster care or whatever, the safety net. We're not that. We are the prescriptions, right? We are after you come out of the hospital, after you had your heart attack, where do you go to stay alive and healthy? That's Park and Rec, right? We are the solution to so many problems where if we go away that we don't. So the payout for that is so huge if you could figure out how to like keep your cup filled and look at all of the kids and all the families that you touch on a regular, everything that we do touches on a regular basis. It really does transform people's lives. We all drink the Park and Rec Kool-Aid.
Absolutely. That is a great way to finish. And with that being said, for those that are listening, I hope you enjoyed the little twist to today. Obviously, it was different. Didn't have our roundtable, didn't have our normal intro. But with this being a year and a half in the making, it was important to take as much time as possible with J. Cole. So we did not, do the same script we've always done. And, J. Cole, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to not only talk to you today, but also sit next to you and be a part of this live in audience.
This is awesome. The Jays.
Yes. This was awesome.
Jays. This was great. This is better than even better than the first one.
Yeah.
And you are an amazing sport. For a year and a half, I thought, that you would never forgive us for that. And
but hold on, there's one thing that she told me yesterday, which I never thought about this. If you guys were smart, you would have had her as a guest, like over the last year.
I'd have been disappointed in you guys. I'm like, that would have been the best get is if Shane called me and brought it on. And then how bad would he have felt?
So we had talked about you being the 100th episode, and in my head,
talked about that in Orlando. Like we never talked about it before September. I have
thought about seeing if I could get her on earlier, but
that would have been. But like she mentioned that to me yesterday, I was like, you know what, that would have been genius. And I would have felt terrible, and it would have been something Shane probably could have pulled off.
That's what I was going to say. That's a Shane thing. I would never have done that to you, Jay.
It would have been better, though. It would have been better after, like, if you called me up and say, wait until, this is what you should have done. You should have said, okay, when Jay contacts you to schedule.
Say no.
Let me know, and I will be the one before. We will schedule him for 2 out. So he will be all ready to come. So he won't, and then I will bring you and just, like, blow the whole thing. Yes.
That's why she's one of the best. That's why we don't think like she
does. See, that's it. It's like I had you guys all doing the.
We talked about that. We talked about that last episode. You conducted us.
Yeah. Well, thank you, J. Cole, again. And guys, this was awesome. And until next time, thanks for listening.
You're the best, Jay. Mwah.
See everyone. Thank you.
This episode of RecLess wouldn't have been possible without the support of our agencies and our better halves, Melissa Salatino, Lindsay Tryon, and our executive producer, Hannah Mize. We also want to thank our director of hashtags and swag, Rooney Taylor, and our team of junior producers, Luke, James, Elizabeth, Grant, and Harper. Stay up to date on all things RecLess by following all of our social media and like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast to ensure you don't miss an episode. See you next time on RecLess.